Meet Pedro and Chantel.
Avión, baby. No es mi culpa. Avión tenía problemas.
¿Seguro?
If you've spent even a little time in the chaotic world of 90 Day Fiancé, chances are you've heard of these two. They're easily one of the most dysfunctional couples to ever come out of the franchise. And somehow their families, the Everetts and the Jimenos, managed to be even more chaotic. When Pedro and Chantel first appeared on the show, they seemed like a couple looking forward to building a happy life together. But between cultural differences, meddling relatives, trust issues, and financial conflicts, that dream quickly spiraled into complete chaos. We're talking explosive fights between Pedro and Chantel, physical altercations between Pedro and Chantel's family, mothers on both sides constantly adding fuel to the fire, and enough drama to make even longtime reality TV fans question what they're watching.
Thank you for your effort. Because guess why? I'm trying to speak your love language, okay?
Where's my love? What are you talking about?
I'm not trying to be your servant.
Vamos a mostrarle la casa, vengan para acá.
Sí, he dicho de new house.
Ajá.
Okay.
Pedro's mom's apartment is completely different than her old apartment.
In fact, Pedro, Chantel, and their families generated so much drama for the franchise that they ended up getting their own spin-off series. So that should give you some idea of what we're dealing with here. Today we're covering the entire story of Pedro and Chantel, from their beginnings on 90 Day Fiancé to their bitter and highly contentious divorce. So let's get into it. One of the most baffling facts you need to know about Pedro and Chantel is that they got engaged after just 3 in-person meetings, and that's something that's had 90 Day Fiancé fans raising their eyebrows ever since their story first aired. The two met online in 2014 through a mutual friend. Chantel wanted to learn Spanish, and Pedro was tutoring at the time, so the friend decided to connect them.
I was interested in learning Spanish, and I had a friend introduce me to Pedro. Hello.
Pedro was living in the Dominican Republic with his mother, Lydia, and sister, Nicole, while Chantel was living in Atlanta, Georgia with her parents and siblings. She was working as a cheerleading coach and pursuing a nursing degree when the two started talking. What began as a language learning arrangement quickly turned into something much more. After getting to know Pedro online, Chantel decided to visit the Dominican Republic. What she expected to be a fun trip soon turned into a whirlwind romance. And according to Chantel herself, Pedro proposed after they had met in person only 3 times.
Public. The idea was for me to learn Spanish and for Pedro to learn English. But when I first saw him online, I was attracted to him right away. So I decided to visit him in the Dominican Republic. I thought that I was just gonna have a little fun on vacation, but we fell in love. And on the 3rd trip, he proposed.
Now you can probably see why people found that a little suspicious. Even to this day, many fans question how someone could go from online conversations to an engagement after just 3 meetings. Naturally, people started wondering whether this was really a love story or whether there was another motive behind it. Those suspicions only grew stronger when Pedro received a K-1 visa shortly after their engagement. Despite all that, once the couple actually appeared on screen, many viewers began changing their minds. Unlike a lot of couples on 90 Day Fiancé, Pedro and Chantel genuinely seemed obsessed with each other. They could barely keep their hands off one another. Chantel constantly talked about how attractive Pedro was and how differently he treated her compared to other men she had dated.
Avión, baby. No es mi culpa. Avión tenía problemas.
¿Seguro? I'm so excited because finally, the day that I've been waiting for a very long time, I'm here with Pedro, and I'm super excited to take him home with me. Great, because I think that Americans don't really treat me the way I want to be treated, but Pedro definitely is a breath of fresh air. He treats me like a princess.
For a while, their chemistry was enough to make people overlook some of the red flags. And there were definitely red flags. For example, while traveling to the United States, Pedro missed his flight to Atlanta and didn't even bother telling Chantel. She only found out when she arrived at the airport to pick him up and called him after realizing he had never boarded the flight.
Okay. Adios. So he doesn't have a plane to get on, apparently. I don't know if he missed his plane or...
Still, compared to the disasters we usually see on this show, this was relatively minor. When Pedro arrived in the United States, the couple joined season 4 of the 90-Day Fiancé in 2016. Things actually seemed to be going pretty well. Well, except for one very important detail. Chantel's family had absolutely no idea she was engaged. As far as they knew, Pedro was simply her boyfriend, and he was coming to America on a student visa. They had no clue that Chantel was planning to marry him within 90 days. And honestly, this is probably the first major sign that Chantel was not exactly innocent in all of this either. Not only did she hide the fact that she was engaged, but she also started preparing for the wedding without keeping her family informed. She went dress shopping, made plans for the ceremony, and continued moving everything forward while leaving her parents completely in the dark. Then when it finally became impossible to keep this secret any longer, Chantel somehow came up with an even worse idea. Instead of telling her family herself, she tried convincing Pedro to be the one to break the news. Needless to say, he was not exactly thrilled with that plan.
With pressure. So I'm gonna give the pressure to him. And Pedro, you're gonna talk to my family. Baby.
But his loss for words pushes Chantel to step up to the plate.
Actually, I have something to tell you guys.
Do tell.
Good news or bad news?
Better be
It
good.
better be good news.
Really, I mean, only... ¿Cómo es?
¿Qué tú quieres decir?
I can't, baby.
Okay, so Pedro is not here on a student visa. He's actually here on a K-1 visa. The K-1 visa is the fiancé visa. And we have to get married on Thursday.
This Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday.
Unfortunately for Pedro, things only got worse from this point on, because Chantel's family, especially her mother Karen, already did not trust him. From the moment they met him, they were convinced there was a good chance he was only interested in Chantel for a green card. Every decision he made was viewed through that lens. Eventually, they agreed to support the wedding, but under one condition: Pedro had to sign a prenup. And when we say they were serious about that condition, we mean they were serious, because Karen literally showed up to the wedding and asked to see their prenup agreement. Before Pedro could officially become part of the family, he first had to sign paperwork making sure he would never be able to touch Chantel's inheritance, which is certainly one way to welcome your future son-in-law into the family.
Did you guys get the prenuptial agreement?
Oh, yeah.
We'd like to see that.
Okay, go.
Oh, yes.
It was really stressful to
well,
get this
you know
done,
what?
but
Just let the stress go.
Got it
Life is
done.
full of surprises. All right, let's see here.
Only import prenup? Baby, only import prenup? No like a per wedding? No happy per wedding? Oh my God.
Well, by now you probably have a pretty good idea of just how meddling and interfering Chantel's family can be. Sure, you could argue that they were worried about their daughter's safety. After all, she was planning to marry a man from another country whom she had known for a relatively short period of time. But at the same time, Chantel was 25 years old. She was the one who agreed to the marriage. She was the one who brought Pedro to the United States on a K-1 visa. At some point, you would think she would be allowed to make her own decisions without her entire family conducting a full-scale investigation into every aspect of her relationship. And honestly, that ends up becoming a running theme throughout this entire saga. Chantel's family is constantly inserting itself into her marriage, while Chantel herself seems incapable of keeping any aspect of her personal life private. Every disagreement, every concern, every little issue somehow ends up becoming a family discussion. But to be fair, Pedro is not much different. When Chantel's family demanded that he sign a prenup before the wedding, Pedro immediately called his mother Lydia and told her all about it. And this was her reaction.
Rather heated about the whole thing.
Aquí he tenido muchos problemas. Y la familia Chantel quiere que yo firme un papel, un prenuptial, que es un prenup.
Estúpido, porque tú tienes mucho valor, demasiado valor. Ella es afortunada que tú estés con ella. Firme nada, no le firme nada.
So it becomes pretty obvious very on that Pedro's side of the family is not exactly thrilled about Chantel either. In fact, as this story unfolds, Lydia and Nicole will make it abundantly clear that they absolutely cannot stand her. These two spend years treating Chantel like an enemy, and at times seem more invested in breaking up the marriage than supporting Pedro's happiness, which is strange, because let's not forget that Pedro came to the United States through Chantel. Not only that, but once he got settled, he regularly sent money back home to support his mother and sister. The money helped them move into a better place, buy nicer things, and generally improve their quality of life. Yet despite all that, Lydia and Nicole still acted as though Chantel was some kind of villain. Speaking of money, that also became another major source of tension in Pedro and Chantel's marriage. From what we saw on the show, Chantel didn't seem to know before getting married that Pedro would be sending a significant amount of money back to his family.
I feel like they're freeloaders. You don't think that a TV is enough and you want for me to go buy your mom a laptop? ¿Tú tienes otro apartamento ahora? ¿Tú ayudar con dinero?
Claro, baby, siempre ayudo a mi madre con dinero.
¿Y por qué no me habías dicho?
No tengo que hablar todas mis cosas.
Now, to be fair, supporting parents financially is very common in Dominican culture. Many children help their families once they start earning money. The problem was not necessarily the cultural expectation itself. The problem was that Chantel appeared completely blindsided by it. As a result, money quickly became one of the couple's biggest arguments. And honestly, you can understand why she was frustrated. For the first year of their marriage, Pedro could not legally work because he didn't yet have a work permit. During that period, Chantel was juggling her studies while working multiple jobs to support both of them financially. Eventually, Pedro found work at a warehouse. But for a long time, Chantel was carrying most of the burden herself. Plus, she had sponsored Pedro's visa process and visit to the United States. So from her perspective, it probably didn't feel great to watch Pedro's family constantly ask him for money and expensive gifts. There were even scenes where Nicole was calling Pedro, asking for things like a flat-screen TV, all while showing very little respect toward Chantel.
Mándame mi dinero para comprarme mi televisión porque usted me la debe. Que le estoy con el televisor una mentira.
Things got even more unhinged when Chantel, Pedro, and the Everett family traveled to the Dominican Republic to meet Lydia and Nicole, because the moment these families got together in person, the vibes were absolutely horrific. The very first meeting was awkward from the start. Chantel's family spent most of their time quietly judging Lydia and Nicole, while Lydia and Nicole seemed equally unimpressed by the Everetts.
Last time I visited him, he didn't live here. His family lived somewhere else, and that he's sending money home. They're able to afford to live here.
Wow, don't you find that strange?
That's interesting.
And then came the infamous chicken feet incident. For reasons that are still debated by fans to this day, Lydia and Nicole decided to serve chicken feet during this family gathering, and Karen took immediate offense. The entire Everett family looked horrified as the tray was brought out, while the Jimeno family acted as though nothing unusual was happening, which from their perspective was true.
Okay, you want the chicken feet? This is the chicken feet and the salsadura.
That's the salsadura?
Yeah.
Salura de chicken.
Salsadura de chicken. Neck. Chicken neck. This is the chicken.
Okay, and people in the Dominican Republic eat a chicken foot?
Yeah.
How you supposed to eat it? Pedro comes out with this plate of chicken feet and chicken necks, and in my head, I'm just like, what the hell? They're just spitting in our faces.
Try one. Let me see how you eat it.
Huh?
Just show me how would you eat a chicken foot.
I like the chicken foot. My mother every time. Order.
When I saw the chicken feet, I felt that it might have been a setup.
The funniest part of this entire ordeal was Karen becoming convinced that the chicken feet were some sort of voodoo-related attack.
Religion of voodoo, they use a lot of chicken feet. So naturally, I don't want to be taken advantage of.
You don't like it?
Now, we should clarify something here. Eating chicken feet is completely normal in Dominican culture. It's a legitimate food item, and many Dominicans were confused by the Everett's reaction. Pedro himself seemed genuinely baffled by why everyone was acting as if they had just been served something outrageous. A lot of viewers from cultures where chicken feet are commonly eaten were not exactly thrilled with Karen's comments either, especially when she started connecting them to voodoo and other stereotypes. That being said, the situation is not completely black and white. While chicken feet are normal in the Dominican Republic, many people have pointed out that they're generally considered a lower-cost food, and and are not necessarily something you'd serve at an important family dinner, which is where things start looking a little suspicious, because Chantel had visited Pedro's family before and claimed she had never seen them cook chicken feet. On top of that, Lydia later admitted that she did not even eat chicken feet herself.
¿Tú no comiste eso, pollo?
No, yo no como eso.
¿Y por qué cocinarlo?
So naturally, people started asking a very reasonable question. If Lydia does not eat chicken feet, and Chantel has never seen her serve them before, then why choose that particular meal for this specific gathering? Maybe it was completely innocent, or maybe she knew it would freak the Everetts out and decided to have a little fun at their expense. Honestly, either explanation feels believable. What's interesting is that throughout this entire trip, the chaos just kept escalating. To be fair though, Chantel's family was also doing everything in their power to make themselves look as toxic as possible. At one point, they visited Pedro's grandmother's home and literally refused to get out of the van. They just sat there in the van, judging the property and making comments about how poor Pedro's family was.
We do not wish to get out of the van. This place is in despair.
My family sees nothing but like a cauldron and some woman stirring a pot. Like, my mom's already shocked by the chicken feet voodoo his mom tried to serve us.
I need to go back.
My family is freaked out. They see the humble conditions that Pedro's family grew up with in comparison to the way his mom and sister live with their 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. They're starting to think that I'm being used so that Pedro can make money in the US for his family.
It does not make sense that Pedro's family is coming up in here and Chantel is not coming up.
We're realizing that a lot has changed for Pedro's sister and his mother.
This incident was incredibly rude, painfully awkward to watch, and one of those moments where you almost forget which family you're supposed to be criticizing because everyone involved is behaving terribly. To be honest, Chantel not standing up for her husband, constantly talking about his family's living conditions, and complaining about him to her family while they all sat in their van was probably one of their lowest moments on the show.
That he is with her, because without her, none of this would be possible.
I don't know what's going on. I think he might be brainwashed.
I think he's being used. I think Pedro,
I told him he's being used already.
I believe he's being puppeteered and manipulated.
While the fan base sided with Chantel on plenty of other occasions, this is arguably one of the few moments where most viewers agreed that what she was doing was disrespectful as hell. And all of this tension, Pedro and Chantel constantly running back to their families to complain about each other, neither of them setting boundaries, and neither of them standing up for their spouse, eventually led to a much bigger confrontation involving Chantel, Lydia, and Nicole. It was nasty, ugly, and completely avoidable. All it would have taken was for either Pedro or Chantel to use a little bit of common sense, but unfortunately that was not about to happen. So here's what went down. After Chantel's family refused to get out of the van and meet Pedro's grandmother, Chantel decided to meet with Lydia and Nicole in person to apologize on her family's behalf. It was a reasonable thing to do, considering they were also planning to have a wedding ceremony in the Dominican Republic, and everyone needed to be on somewhat decent terms. Unfortunately, that's not how the conversation went, because while speaking to an already irritated Lydia and Nicole, Chantel somehow decided to bring up her favorite topic yet again: money. Why was Pedro sending them so much money? Why was he constantly buying them gifts? Why were Pedro and Chantel living in a small 1-bedroom apartment while Lydia was living comfortably in a 3-bedroom home? And why did they keep asking her husband for money?
Y muchos regalos.
¿Muchos regalos?
Y regalos también.
¿Cuáles regalos?
Regalos siempre. ¿Cuáles? Siempre.
Now, regardless of whether those concerns were valid, this was probably the worst possible time to bring them up. As you can imagine, Nicole did not take that conversation well. In fact, she completely exploded on Chantel, and the entire exchange turned pretty ugly.
You just call me a bitch?
Yes.
You are a whore, and you will not disrespect me like this today. Good night. Ass bitch, ass slut, ass whore. Yeah, you should. Whatever. Bitch.
Now, while Nicole was definitely disrespectful and incredibly rude during this argument, there is one detail worth clarifying. Nicole did not actually call Chantel a bitch. Chantel misunderstood what Nicole said due to the language barrier, but when Chantel directly asked if she had said it, Nicole basically responded with, yeah, sure. So while the situation is often remembered as Nicole calling Chantel a bitch, the reality was a little more complicated than that. Now, any normal human being living in a normal world would probably assume that after all of this drama, insults, and family warfare, the wedding would be completely off. But this is reality TV. You create drama and then you stick together for the ratings. So the wedding actually happened. Everyone showed up, everyone smiled for the cameras, and somehow they all managed to behave themselves for a few hours. Karen even gave Pedro's grandmother a bouquet of flowers as an apology for refusing to visit her earlier.
Hola.
Hola. Hola.
Tú eres bella.
We decided to make a gesture.
For a brief moment, it almost looked like things might finally calm down. But, of course, they didn't. After the wedding, the Everetts, Chantel, and Pedro returned to the United States, and the chaos picked right back up where it had left off. By this point, Pedro had received a work permit and started working at a warehouse. But despite now having an income, money continued to be one of the biggest issues in the marriage. Pedro was still committed to sending money and gifts back to his family in the Dominican Republic, and Chantel was still not happy about it. And both sides were becoming more stubborn with every passing month. To make matters worse, Chantel's family had become completely convinced that Pedro, Lydia, and Nicole were using Chantel for money and a green card. According to Chantel's family, Lydia was supposedly running some kind of business where she used her children to attract Americans and bring money back to the Dominican Republic. Yes, that was an actual theory they discussed with complete seriousness.
Your mother finds the people that want to get married for the money. Wow.
My mother no do that.
He said his mom doesn't do that.
No do that, okay?
Today I'm going with my family.
If you think this theory sounds insane, wait until you hear what Chantel's family decided to do next. They hired a private investigator. They literally hired a private investigator to dig into Pedro and his family. The investigator started throwing around theories that Pedro might secretly have a wife, children, or some hidden life that nobody knew about. Meanwhile, Chantel sat there while her family treated her husband like the subject of a criminal investigation.
I'm in nursing school. We live in a one-bedroom. In the Dominican Republic, his mom living in like a 3-bedroom and 2-bathroom apartment.
Well, why is Pedro taking care of his family and not taking care of you?
Exactly.
That's a good question. Good question.
That's what we always been asking. But you never entertain it when we say it.
He tells me that it's his culture. It's his culture to do that.
It seems like Pedro is still being very secretive.
We mean, if you have a suspicion that your husband is hiding something, you can't trust him, or he doesn't listen to you and doesn't share your values, then why are you not divorcing him and saving yourself the headache? Why let your family interfere in every aspect of your relationship and even hire a private investigator? This was one of the most insane moments of the show. But sadly, another incident came shortly after that, completely stealing the title of the most unhinged moment in the entire season. We're talking about the infamous fight between Pedro and Chantel's younger brother, River. So sometime after their marriage, Nicole decided to visit the United States, and Chantel's family thought it would be a good idea to invite Pedro and Nicole over for dinner. To be honest, it was not a good idea at all. Why? Because even before Pedro and Nicole arrived at the house, everybody was already in a terrible and completely non-hospitable mood. And the reason for that was something Chantel had told them about Nicole the day before.
When I left the house this morning to go to school, I closed the door behind me. Nicole yelled, "Thank God," and started clapping her hands.
Wow. You know something, it seems...
What? I'll do something about this. You hold this. Let's go over there.
So as you can probably imagine, after hearing this from Chantel, Karen decided to confront Nicole and Pedro during dinner in her awful Spanish and signature derogatory tone.
Nicole, how do you and Chantal get along in the apartamente?
Bien.
Es bien.
Sí. It's good.
Es good.
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
Initially, Nicole tried to avoid answering her questions, but since everybody, including Chantel, was coming at her, Pedro eventually stepped in to defend his sister, and that only made things worse. The argument quickly escalated and turned into a huge and ugly physical fight between Pedro and River.
Junior.
Hey, excuse me.
Calma,
Oh, excuse me? Okay.
Yo no te hice hace nada, en lo absoluto a ti.
Okay.
Now, there are two opinions about this altercation as well. While some people believe Pedro started the fight by getting up and charging at River, many others believe River was the one who instigated it. He definitely said something that was censored later on, and some viewers have speculated that it may have been a racial slur, although we can't say that for certain. What we do know is that River tried to swing a lamp at Pedro's face, and Pedro literally had to duck to avoid getting hit. Plus, Chantel's family's behavior throughout the dinner was also incredibly disrespectful. For example, Karen interrupting Pedro while he was trying to tell Chantel to switch seats so he could sit between Nicole and her is something many viewers believe had already pushed him over the edge.
Okay, you can move the chair. You can put.
No, she's not going to. She's going to sit there.
Hey.
Now, the most hilarious part of this entire situation was, of course, Karen. Right after the incident, she kept repeating in her very broken Spanish while waving Nicole's wig around, "No immigration for Nicole and Pedro," and "bad for the family."
Tranquila.
No más immigration para ti. Immigration para Nicole.
Get inside. Get up.
Muy malo. Familia.
You gotta get in the house.
Malo. Pedro y Nicole. Muy malo.
What the hell are you doing, Karen? Seriously? What is this? Stop having your main character moment in the middle of a damn fight. One thing that becomes increasingly clear throughout Chantel and Pedro's marriage is that both of their families are complete whack. And Pedro and Chantel are basically standing there saying, "Here's some gasoline. Take some matches too and go ahead and burn our marriage to the ground." While Chantel's family is the epitome of insanity, Pedro's family's not much better. They're also actively contributing to the downfall of the marriage, and Pedro seems completely incapable of recognizing it. One of the biggest examples of this came when Pedro went back to the Dominican Republic to get some space from Chantel and her family. And let's just say he got a little too comfortable there, like letting one of his family friends, Karema, dance very intimately on his lap kind of comfortable. This whole thing was filmed by Nicole, and regardless of how Pedro tried to explain it later, it looked terrible. Eventually, Chantel also traveled to the Dominican Republic to clear a few things up with Pedro and spend time with his friends and family. And that's when Nicole, being the biggest instigator on planet Earth, decided to show Chantel the video. Not only did she show it to her, but she looked absolutely thrilled by Chantel's reaction.
Entonces, yo le enseñé a Chantal cómo la habíamos pasado muy bien el otro día en el bar.
It's time to go because it's time for me to go.
Mira, tú te mereces esto.
Mira.
No me importa. Mira, tú te mereces esto.
Honestly, one of the most insane parts of this entire situation was Pedro's response. He just sat there making a sad puppy face while his sister openly mocked his wife over his own behavior. At no point did he seriously step in and tell Nicole to knock it off. What's even crazier is that after they returned to the United States, Chantel still seemed more focused on figuring out whether Pedro had married her for a green card and to financially support his family.
Now that we're back in America, I want to talk about this and I want to know the truth.
For what? What?
I want to know the truth about why you asked me to marry you.
You're funny sometimes.
Did you marry me for love?
What?
Or did you marry me so that you could come to America and work and send money back? Did you marry me for love, or did you marry me to come to America and send money back to your mom and your sister?
I mean, does that even matter at this point? It's not like Pedro is gonna sit down and confess it had been his plan all along, and by now there were already enough red flags in this to fill an entire parade. This man had just allowed another woman to dance on his lap in front of a crowd. Whether he originally married you for love or a green card is almost irrelevant when the relationship is already falling apart right in front of you. Naturally, when Chantel got back to the United States and told her family what she had learned, they were even more furious with Pedro than before. And somehow, despite all of this, the first season of the Family Chantel, which aired in 2019, focused heavily on the Everetts and Pedro participating in family counseling. Seriously? After everything that had happened up to this point, they still thought the problem was fixable through family counseling? As you can probably imagine, these counseling sessions were a complete disaster. They did not solve anything. In fact, they just ended up creating even more drama. One of the biggest moments came when Pedro revealed during a session that he had planned to bring his mother and sister to the United States because they were his real family.
Because this here is not my family. And that's why I want to bring my mom and my sister living with me to the United States.
As you can guess, that statement did not go over well with Chantel. In fact, it led to even more arguments about money, loyalty, and where Pedro's priorities actually were.
Pedro, how come you didn't tell me before counseling that you were gonna bring your mother over here?
That's a big deal.
I mean, that's a big deal.
That's not a big deal. You know, you don't say nothing before. You're taking chill out.
While all of these moments were absolute ratings gold for TLC, the real showdown of the season came when Pedro's grandmother became ill in the Dominican Republic, and he and Chantel decided to travel there together. Now, the trip itself was not the important part. The important part was that Chantel's family somehow decided they should go too, you know, to repair family ties, to clear the air after the explosive fight between Pedro and River, because apparently that sounded like a reasonable idea to somebody. Throughout the trip, there were multiple attempts to get both families together and force them to have mature conversations like adults. The problem was that everything we had learned about these people up until that point suggested they were completely incapable of behaving like adults whenever they were in the same room. So, unsurprisingly, those conversations went about as well as you would expect.
De lo que pasó ese día ahí. Usted hizo que su hijo peleara. Usted hizo que su hijo. ¿Quién hablaste del pasado? Fue ella. Vamos a hablar del pasado, Chantal.
During the season's finale, Chantel decided to confront Karema as well, the same woman who had been dancing on Pedro's lap and who had become a recurring source of arguments between them lately. This confrontation, much like everything else involving these families, did not go very well either and ended up turning physical.
Natural.
Okay.
Now, in the next 2 seasons of the Family Chantel, we start to see a slight shift in the family dynamics. While the feud between the Everetts and the Jimenos is still very much alive, Pedro begins questioning his own family for the first time, and the biggest reason for that is his father. Longtime viewers of the show will know that Pedro grew up without a relationship with his father. He never really knew him, never had him in his life, and had spent years wondering what had actually happened. So at this point in the timeline, Pedro decides to start looking for answers.
You told me your father would come to see your mom.
Yeah.
But you never saw him because it was at night and you were asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, after some time, you don't think that she would question him why he's only coming at nighttime and why he doesn't live with them and spend time with his children?
I don't know all the details because my mom don't want to address that topic with me.
I just wonder if your mom knew that he had another family.
You don't understand, like, I was 7 years old.
After having this conversation with Chantel, he travels back to the Dominican Republic and eventually discovers that his father was a married man when he entered a relationship with Pedro's mother. But that's not all he learns. While searching for answers, Pedro also meets his 2 half-brothers and begins uncovering details about his family's past that completely changed the way he sees them. One of the biggest revelations was that Lydia apparently knew his father was married and still chose to pursue a relationship with him anyway. Somehow this situation gets even messier. Pedro discovers that his sister Nicole is dating a man named Alejandro, who is also married.
Está casado y está en una relación contigo. Tú eres una descarada, Nicole.
Then, while speaking to his grandmother, he learns that she too had a relationship with a married man. At this point, Pedro starts noticing a pattern. The more he learns, the more he begins questioning the people he spent years defending. Nicole, meanwhile, is absolutely no help. Throughout the search for answers about their father, she repeatedly refuses to support Pedro and seems more interested in defending Lydia than helping him understand the truth. And despite Pedro's objections to her relationship with Alejandro, she continues sneaking around with him anyway. Eventually, things get so heated that Pedro and Alejandro end up in a physical altercation.
Oh, it's a bull as well. I'm gonna leave this place. Man. Hey. I'm gonna fight you, man. Release me!
Needless to say, all of this drives an even bigger wedge between Pedro and Nicole. And what makes the situation even worse is how quickly both Lydia and Nicole turn on him, especially Nicole. The moment Pedro starts questioning their choices and challenging the narrative he had been fed his entire life, they become incredibly hostile toward him. For the first time, Pedro begins to recognize just how dysfunctional some of the patterns within his own family really are. Ironically, while Pedro's relationship with his family is falling apart, his relationship with Chantel actually seems to be improving. Throughout the entire ordeal surrounding his father, Chantel is shown supporting him emotionally and encouraging him to keep searching for answers. She comforts him when he's struggling and even flies to the Dominican Republic to be there for him when he deals with the fallout from his family. But here's the best part. For some reason, Karen and Winter decide to come too, because apparently no family crisis involving Pedro and Chantel is complete without additional members of the Everett family showing up to make things even more chaotic. Unsurprisingly, all of the tension Pedro's been carrying with Lydia and Nicole eventually boils over into yet another explosive family confrontation. The star of that argument is, of course, Nicole. During the confrontation, she starts throwing things around, screaming uncontrollably, and completely losing her temper. The situation becomes so chaotic that 2 security guards eventually have to escort her off the property, and Chantel ends up calling the police.
Bye. Pedro had said Coraima.
¿Quién fue el que escribió la carta que recibió
No me hable
papi?
de carta, que yo no tengo que hablar de nada con gente extraña.
Hey,
¿Ok?
ok, no
Yo no tengo que hablar.
Yo tengo que hablar
Mi
contigo entonces.
problema con ella.
Entonces, pues, ¿tú hablas
Yo no
conmigo?
tengo que hablar contigo.
Entonces,
no tengo
si no,
nada que hablar
si no tienes que hablar conmigo, entonces no hables conmigo.
Lo sabes.
Ya, me voy,
Entonces,
ya.
tu gente.
Ya, sí, más nada.
Esas son tu familia. Esas no son tu familia. Esas son tus enemigas.
¿Qué son mis enemigas?
Porque Chantal no te respeta. ¿Tú quieres que yo te agarre y te mate?
Mira. Un seco, mira.
Coñazo.
¿De qué te ríes?
Vete al país y no regresa más.
What's truly fascinating about all this is how Lydia and Nicole seem completely incapable of taking accountability for anything. When Pedro was blindly listening to them, sending them money despite Chantel's objections, and doing whatever they wanted, everything was fine. But the moment he starts questioning their decisions and holding them accountable for their own actions, they suddenly accuse him of being disrespectful.
Wow.
What is all of this mess?
Not mess. It's not
yes,
messy.
it looks like a mess to me.
No, it's not mess. It's for show you something what I did.
What happened? A disaster?
Now, after this showdown, Pedro and Chantel returned to the United States, and by season 4 of the show, a lot had changed in their lives. For starters, they had finally moved out of the 1-bedroom apartment that Chantel hated so much and into a brand new house. Chantel had also graduated from nursing school after what felt like an eternity and was now working as a nurse. And for Pedro, things had changed dramatically on the career front as well. He had left his warehouse job behind and started working as a real estate agent. So financially speaking, they seemed to have everything figured out. But while their careers and living situation had improved, their relationships had not. Following the events of the previous season, Pedro's relationship with his mother and sister were still strained. Even though he had begun speaking to Lydia again, he was nowhere near ready to forgive Nicole. And right from the beginning of the season, viewers started noticing something else. Pedro seemed different. He came across as colder, more distant, and noticeably less patient with Chantel. It felt like he was exhausted by everyone and everything around him. Oddly enough, that attitude seemed to disappear whenever he was at work. At his new real estate job, Pedro constantly talked about how much he loved the environment, how many friends he had made, and how much he enjoyed going to work every day. It almost felt like now that he had built a life, a social circle, and career for himself in the United States, he and Chantel were no longer on the same page.
Try to help her to make her career, I try to be supportive for her. I got everything?
Yeah.
But I believe that Chantal doesn't know how to be happy for me. Go, no?
Yeah, it's freezing.
When I'm working, I take my mind out those problems, and it's like work right now is my hiding spot, like for those problems.
Perhaps the biggest example of Pedro's lack of interest in Chantel came during Chantel's housewarming party. While everybody else was celebrating, Pedro spent most of the evening sulking around. He barely greeted anyone, looked visibly annoyed, and generally acted as if he would rather be anywhere else.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah.
Pedro didn't get up and he didn't come and greet my wife or say, hey, how you doing, Mr. Thomas, like he usually does. Maybe he had something on his mind.
Yeah, he did seem a little bit stressed and weirder than usual. Yeah, just a tad bit. I want to give a toast.
To be fair, though, there was one thing at that party that was even more absurd than Pedro's attitude: Karen's Spanish. Somehow it seemed to be getting worse with every passing season.
I want to give a toast to, how do I say my in español?
Me.
Mi casa es, no, tu casa es mi casa para yo y, yo y tú y familia es muy feliz ahora.
Sí.
Sí.
Cheers!
Besides this, another awkward moment of the evening came when everyone started pressuring Pedro and Chantel about having children. Since they now had a big house and stable careers, the family seemed convinced that a baby should be the next step. Pedro, however, looked completely uninterested in the idea.
You want to have children?
Honestly, this might be the most sensible thing Pedro said all season. It's genuinely baffling that Chantel was talking about having kids when their marriage was already hanging by a thread. Ever since Pedro started his real estate job, she'd been complaining about their lack of communication, their lack of chemistry, him spending most of his time at work and coming home late at night after drinking with coworkers. At the same time, Pedro had his own list of complaints. He constantly criticized Chantel for not cleaning enough, not cooking enough, and accused her of being lazy.
What about coming home at 3 in the morning without your car?
I was drunk.
And I don't know how you got here, and I don't know how your car got back here in the morning. No, I don't even want to get into the lies that you've told me. The lies.
Excuse me.
The lies that you've told me.
What lies?
You go to get your nails done with your coworkers, and you can't even take a 30-minute walk with me. You can't even turn on the light for me in the morning.
You have 2 hands, you can do it. Because you're lazy.
Move.
I know.
That's not exactly the ideal environment to bring a child into. And then there was Antonella. One of Pedro's coworkers had become a major source of tension in the marriage. Pedro had been giving her rides home on a regular basis, which led to constant accusations that he was cheating on Chantel. Things got so bad that Chantel eventually showed up at Pedro's work gathering and started questioning his coworkers.
Coworkers more because he always is with you guys. You know, he's with the coworkers more than he's at home. So I want to get to know his friends and like...
I need one more, please.
Needless to say, it was incredibly awkward. After this incident, Pedro seemed completely checked out. The two had a very heated conversation shortly afterward, which ultimately led to Pedro deciding that he wanted some time apart and that they should separate for a while. Chantel was understandably devastated by this. She could tell that Pedro was already emotionally halfway out the door, and she knew that if they separated, there was a very real chance they would never get back together. So she decided to do something rather unexpected. She flew to the Dominican Republic and showed up at Lydia's house with a pair of Gucci sunglasses as a peace offering. Surprisingly, Lydia accepted both the gift and Chantel's attempt to reconcile. But things became even more awkward when Pedro found out that Chantel had visited his mother without telling him.
Pero habla algo, di algo.
Yo quiero saber qué hace ella ahora mismo. Oye, ¿qué hace ella? Dime, ¿qué ella quiere hablar contigo?
Ella vino a limar las asperezas, que ella tiene situaciones con la familia, que quería hacer una conversación porque no le presta atención, él trabaja y trabaja y...
¿Cómo va para allá a hablar contigo? Eso a mí me disgustó ya. ¿Cómo ella va para allá a hablar contigo a mi espalda sin decirme nada?
Ah, yo no sé, pero mira, me compré estos lentes, unos Gucci.
After hearing this, he immediately booked a flight to the Dominican Republic as well. Once there, Pedro and Chantel had very difficult conversations, with Lydia trying to play the role of mediator between them. But despite all the discussions, all the emotions, and all the attempts to work things out, nothing really changed. By the end of it, Pedro remained firm in his decision to separate from Chantel. Now, Lydia was not helping the situation either. She already hated Chantel, and now that her son no longer wanted to be with her, she was basically like good riddance. So Pedro and Chantel returned to the United States and started living separately under the same roof. Eventually, Pedro got his own apartment, and not long after that, he announced that he was planning to file for divorce.
And I want my divorce.
Chantel at this point was still struggling to accept the fact that Pedro was walking away from the marriage like that, so she decided to take all the expensive gifts, important paperwork, and roughly $265,000 from their joint bank account and leave. When Pedro found out, he completely panicked. He started frantically looking for and eventually discovered that she was staying in a hotel with all of his documents and was apparently planning to fly to Panama.
It's mine.
That's your bank money? Where's the account, Pinky? Where you put the account? Did you sell the money?
I'll give it to you.
No, you don't give it to me.
I will, but I can't trust you because
No.
you take $6,000 out. I don't know where it went. You take $5,000
You
out.
take
I
it.
don't know where it went.
You take.
You get a whole new apartment.
This situation was absolutely insane. Eventually, though, Chantel accepted that there was no fixing the marriage. No matter who was right or wrong, it was over, so she filed for divorce as well. Their house was sold, the money in their joint account was divided, and the relationship officially came to an end. At this point, however, Chantel was fully convinced that Pedro had used her to come to the United States and then dumped her the moment he was financially independent. And to be fair, she became a little petty afterward. One of the funniest examples of this was when she outright refused to give Pedro his gaming chair because, according to the divorce agreement, all the furniture in the house belonged to her.
All right.
And something else. I need to go to the house and get my things from the house. My chair, my table.
I'm so... Did you hear something? I'll let you guys handle that one.
Pedro mentions picking up his gaming chair. It's his favorite gaming chair. But according to the terms in the divorce, everything inside the house, all of the furnishings, belong to me, and they're mine now. So there's no chance he's getting that gaming chair.
Chantel also became increasingly obsessed with investigating Pedro after the breakup. She spoke to friends, looked into his activities, and eventually convinced herself that he had been cheating on her with Antonella, his boss, and possibly even Kareem as well. Now, no actual evidence of Pedro cheating was ever presented to viewers. That being said, Pedro had already damaged his credibility years earlier when he allowed Kareem to dance all over him while he was married. So a lot of viewers were not exactly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he never physically cheated. Pedro consistently denied all of Chantel's accusations, but people also couldn't ignore how much time he was spending with his coworkers while his marriage was falling apart. At the very least, it looked suspicious. Meanwhile, Pedro was also reunited with Nicole, who was absolutely thrilled about the divorce. A final confrontation was filmed where Nicole was her usual obnoxious self. Pedro and Chantel were busy hurling accusations at each other, and viewers watched their relationship finally collapse in real time.
You know what you did, Pedro. You know what you did. You know what you did.
If I did everything to make it
You know what you did, Pedro. Oh my God, to cheat on me with people who I've been around, that is just so disrespectful, and you can't apologize for it? What kind of man are you?
Hey, look at me. I never hit on you.
Oh my God.
No, ella puede hacer lo que ella quiera.
Martin, I don't want to be on camera this way, please.
He's probably leaving.
It's fine. We're fine. Chantel, I wish the best for you.
And just like that, the saga of Pedro and Chantel came to an end. After the divorce, both of them moved on with their lives. Pedro eventually got a new girlfriend. Chantel also started dating again, although Karen, being Karen, had opinions about that too. But perhaps the strangest twist in this entire story came when Lydia appeared on another TLC show, Love in Paradise, and started dating a man named Scott. And oh boy, this man somehow managed to make Lydia look reasonable at times. He was arrogant, aggressive, constantly involved in drama, and basically walked around like a giant red flag with a pulse. He and Pedro even got into a physical altercation at one point, which honestly feels perfectly on brand for this family.
I come to talk to you.
Hey, don't get me feel like that, man.
No, don't. Oh! Don't.
There have been countless unhinged stories throughout the history of the 90-Day Fiancé franchise, but Pedro and Chantel's story feels different. The reason is that, despite all the accusations, a large portion of the fan base genuinely believed Pedro loved Chantel. If his only goal had been citizenship, he could have left years earlier. Instead, he spent years dealing with her family, participating in counseling, and repeatedly trying to repair relationships that most sane people would have run from immediately. But there's another side to that argument. Many fans remain convinced that Pedro stayed only until he had established himself. They point out that once he had a successful career, his own income, and no fear of being deported, he suddenly seemed done with the marriage. To them, it was suspicious that the relationship appeared to be improving toward the end of season 3, only for Pedro to completely check out after getting his real estate job. And honestly, that's what makes this story so fascinating. Even after all these years, people still cannot agree on what really happened. Was Pedro a scammer who played the long game? Or was he a man who genuinely loved Chantel but eventually got exhausted by years of family drama, accusations, and dysfunction on both sides? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. What we do know is that these two families spent years pouring gasoline on every problem Pedro and Chantel had, and Pedro and Chantel spent years handing them the matches. If there's one lesson to take away from this entire disaster, it's that your marriage is probably doomed when every argument turns into a family meeting involving 8 people, 3 investigations, 2 international flights, and at least 1 physical fight. And on that note, let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and leave a like. We cover reality TV disasters, internet drama, influencer scandals, and all the chaotic stories the internet has to offer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.